Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Let there be football. Welcome into Move the Chains. I'm Jonathan Bam Rivers. Divisional round matchups in the NFL start today. Can't wait. Full breakdown and full predictions from the divisional round. Now, your boy went 5-1 in the wild card round, and yes, when people tell you that you think more about the one you lost than the others that you won, it's true. But I'll take 5-1, so let's see how I do in the divisional round matchup. And the second down, the College Football National Championship game. Notre Dame taking on the prohibited and presumptive favorite in a lot of people's minds in Ohio State. I'll break that down and I'll give you my pick in that game as well. And in my nonsense narrative, a lot of epitaphs have been written about the SEC. It's getting worse. It's no longer the best conference in America. I understand why people are saying it, and you have to understand what I think it's a nonsense narrative. And Marcus Freeman, ladies and gentlemen, is making history whether Notre Dame wins or loses the national championship. All that and more right here on Move the Chains. But you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. All right, so you remember last week I said that I think the wild card weekend can be considered the best round of football in the NFL just because you have a multitude of games, right? You had 2 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, and then a game on Monday night for the wild card matchup. It was phenomenal. Well, a lot of people consider the divisional round the best round because now you bring in the 1 seeds. Now you bring in the big boys whom have earned a bye, and now you get to see the cream of the crop, so to speak, play, and I can understand that as well. So I've got full reaction and breakdown to what has happened during the season, what I think is going to happen in these games, and ultimately my prediction of who will participate on Championship Sunday next week. But let's go to my first game. We've got the Houston Texans, who won the AFC South and defeated the Chargers last week like your boy said they would, taking on the 15-2, really 15-1, after not having played anybody in Week 18, and the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs are an 8-point favorite here in this game, and this is what I want to talk about. The reason I picked Houston last week was because I thought Houston matched up well against the Chargers. And regardless if you picked the Chargers last week, I'm not knocking you. For the people who acted as if the Texans had no shot was ridiculous in my estimation. But what I won't do is pick the Texans last week and then assume because they went and won that game that they're going to win this week. When I thought they'd win last week, and now I just think they're up against a bigger giant and a better giant in the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you understand that Andy Reid and the record that he has off of a bye week is what it is, not just because the Chiefs are talented, but because they are a very detail-oriented football team? I want to remind everybody what Patrick Mahomes said after they hoisted the Lombardi Trophy after beating San Francisco last year. He said, hey, we're looking to do it again. We want a three-peat. That is their goal. So the fact that they have had essentially 3 weeks of rest means that they're healthier than they've ever been this year. And I think one of the biggest things that this Chiefs team has done is move Joe Thuney, who's an all-pro left guard, to left tackle. And that's because their left tackle position has been an issue. So the fact that you have versatility amongst your offensive line, because if you look at guys like Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey along that offensive line, they have probably the best interior in football. And now, does it make them weaker? Possibly. But I think in this game, the fact that Joe Mixon has sustained an ankle injury during the practice this week hurts Houston. I think the fact that in their last matchup, in Week 16, I think it was, where the Chiefs beat the Texans 27-19, they lost Tank Dell, who's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He just gets it done. He's out because he got hurt in that game, the same way Rashee Rice got hurt against the Chargers early on in the season. The Chiefs were without him. I think the weaponry of Houston is limited. And I also think that the offensive line for Houston has been a deficient aspect of their team the entire season. I think Kansas City is able to put pressure on Houston early. Now, I think this game will not be a blowout, so to speak, because Kansas City doesn't play that type of game. But I will remind you, Houston caused 4 turnovers against the Chargers last week, but they also turned the ball over 3 times themselves. Kansas City has not been giving the ball away. They are a possession team, and now with Hollywood Brown healthy, Isaiah Pacheco healthy, their complement of weapons on the offensive side of the football has been better than they have been the entire season. And oh, by the way, this is a top 3 total defense in the NFL. Kansas City beats Houston and goes to the AFC Championship game, wait for it, for the 7th straight year. Wow. Next up, the Lions hosting the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury. I've given you the quarterback, I've given you the head coach, I've given you the offensive coordinator. the reason I'm doing that is because I think when you talk about a team like Washington, you have to talk about their identity. And I'm starting with the Commanders because a lot of people will look at this game and they'll look at the Texans last year and say, man, rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, they got it done in Houston last year. This is a rookie quarterback, but this is not a rookie head coach. This is Dan Quinn, one of the most respected coaches in the NFL, one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, and you also have one of the best players. I don't want to say one of the best rookies, but one of the best players. However, Detroit is a different monster. The same way I thought Kansas City was a different monster, Detroit's a different monster for Washington, even than Tampa Bay was. And this is what I'll tell you, though. Don't think that Detroit can just pressure Jaden Daniels the way they pressure Sam Darnold to get the same result. I think there's a benefit from the Commanders having played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice because they pressure people more than anybody in the NFL, and you saw how Jaden Daniels handled pressure against Tampa Bay. But Detroit, whether they're compromised on defense or not, the one way I think you have to beat Detroit is be able to stop the run because they're so proficient in the play-action game, especially on first down. If you watch Detroit, if they get a first down, the next play, it seems like almost 80% of the time is play action, and they're hitting Amon-Ra St. Brown across the middle, or they're hitting Jameson Williams on a deep route. They have so many offensive opportunities. You notice I didn't say weapons, but they have so many different offensive opportunities because they're a well-oiled machine. They're well-coached, and I think the bye did them a great service as well. So as well as I think the Commanders have been and as great as they've played this year, I think it ends in Detroit, and I think the Lions make their second straight appearance in the NFC Championship game. All right, so on Sunday, you've got the Rams traveling to Philadelphia. I'm just going to tell you this, Philadelphia wins this game outright. And I know that a lot of people are looking at this game, they're looking at Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, as they should, and they're looking at the, 8 sacks or something that the Rams put on the Vikings last week in the wild card round. But I'll just tell you this, the Rams are coming off a short week because remember, they played Monday night. Right? They're having to travel cross-country after having played in Arizona. Didn't even play in L.A. like they were supposed to because of the wildfires. They had to play in Arizona. So this will be their third city they've played in the past 3 or 4 weeks. They're going cross-country, and they're on a short week. And this Philadelphia team dominated L.A. earlier on in the season because Philadelphia can do what they do every week. Even though styles make fights, they can play great defense up front, and they can also run the football. So if the pressure looks the same on Jalen Hurts as it did against Sam Darnold, I'll just tell you I'd be shocked. Philly has one of the best offensive lines in football. And please stop sitting here and stop worrying about Jalen Hurts and the passing game of the Philadelphia Eagles. When you're that dominant running the football, either in your zone reads or in your outside stretch zones or your inside zones, the passing game has to be efficient. It doesn't have to be explosive. But, oh, yeah, with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown, they can be explosive. Philadelphia wins this game, and they're back in the NFC Championship game after a year hiatus. Last game of the weekend, and everybody's probably their favorite game of the weekend, the Bills and the Ravens. Let me make this comparison. If these two teams were not football teams, if these weren't football organizations, if they were Fortune 500 companies in the medical field, or if they were in the S&P 500, right? If they were just business organizations just running on a day-to-day type projects, I think these would be a great opportunity to merge these organizations because they're just that good from the top down. Both of them have solid head coaches. Both of them have great front offices in my estimation. Both have great quarterbacks. Both have been able to draft and develop well, but it's not. It's the NFL. And you know what I'm most excited about in this game? I know this may sound crazy. I'm most excited that one of these two teams, one of these two quarterbacks will not be in the conference championship game. That's what excites me because no matter how great you are, it doesn't matter how elite you are, it doesn't matter how buttoned up you are, because of what's transpired throughout the season, these are the 2 and 3 seeds in the AFC. And because of that, they're meeting in the divisional round. So do you remember when Kansas City and Buffalo met a few years ago in that great game that changed the overtime rules in the NFL? That's the position these two teams are in. Back then, it was either Mahomes or Allen not getting to the championship game. This year, it's Allen or Jackson. And for my money, Baltimore is a better team. Baltimore runs the football. I don't even want to talk about the 35-10 spanking they put on the Bills earlier on this season because I don't think it'll be that big of a disparity. Buffalo's good. But Baltimore, the way they came out and ran the football in their first-round game against the Steelers, I don't think they deviate from the plan. And I think Baltimore ends up in the AFC Championship game for the second straight year to face the Kansas City Chiefs for the second straight year. All right, when we come back from the break, it's the College Football National Championship game breakdown. You don't want to miss it because I'm not going chalk. I just busted it up, but you still want to watch it. We'll move the chains right after this. And welcome back to Move the Chains. Before I get into second down and picking the College Football National Championship game, I want to first, as always, take this opportunity to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for hosting this show. I'm far from perfect, but I am persistent, and a lot of those opportunities are just blessings. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Secondly, I want to thank you, the fans, for watching, for supporting, for commenting, for providing your feedback. It's growing. The tribe is growing, and I'm truly grateful for this opportunity, like I said before. And last but not least, shout out to the best production crew in the business, man. From directors to producers to everybody that makes sure this show runs the way it should. Shout out to everybody in the back. All right, but as always, you know what time it is. It's time for second down. Notre Dame versus Ohio State. A lot of people didn't have this picked as their national championship game, and we're going to show you the graphic here. And first of all, the 7-8 seed, guys, understand that this is not a 7 seed versus an 8 seed. These were severely underseeded because the seeding was jacked up to start with. That's all I'll say about that. But this game really reminds me of the 2014 national championship game between Florida State and Auburn. Florida State came in with guys like Kelvin Benjamin and Jameis Winston and Ramsey, and they had a squad on that team. Cam Irving. So much NFL talent on that squad. And Auburn was the team who had won the SEC and who had Nick Marshall and Trey Mason, and they were playing well. They could run the football, but everybody knew Florida State was the better team. Florida State actually ended up winning that game. But as I look at Notre Dame this year and I look at Ohio State, one, I'm not going to call myself a Ryan Day defender, but you know if you watch this show that I was one of the few people that said you need to lay off Ryan Day after he lost to Michigan because he was on the same track as Jim Harbaugh. Had less than a 500 record against their rival and had been there 6, 7, 8 years and had been knocking on the door of the college football playoff and getting to the national championship but hadn't done it. Michigan got over the threshold last year. Ohio State is now here. But there's something that I said after they lost to NIU, being Notre Dame, and I said they wouldn't lose again. And I think I just have to stay with that mantra because this is not a Cinderella story in my estimation. Notre Dame is too good defensively. Now, is Ohio State the better team talent-wise? Absolutely. You're not going to get any argument from me there. I just think that when you have a coach like Marcus Freeman and you have a guy like Riley Leonard, so you went and got Riley Leonard, who was one of your few transfers, but he is one of the best leaders. And I think the fact that he can run the football can present problems from Ohio State because they are very, very talented up front, but they're not deep. And this will be a game where Notre Dame has to expose that, and they're going to have to make plays and force turnovers as well. But I just have said it, they're not going to lose since losing to NIU, and they've made it all the way to the national championship. So why jump now? So in my estimation, Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame beat Ohio State to win a national championship for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. All right, when we come back from the break, guys, it'll be my nonsense narrative. You don't want to miss it. More Move the Chains right after this. All right, welcome back to Move the Chains. Now, I just finished giving you my NFL divisional round predictions. I just told you that I thought Notre Dame would win the college football playoff national championship game, and I'm staying on that. And now it's time for my favorite segment of the show because there are a lot of people that are exaggerating the demise of the SEC, and I don't understand why. So you know what time it is. It's time for my nonsense narrative. Let me get my lower third, guys. The SEC is getting worse. That's the narrative. And if you listen to people, and they'll say, well, listen, the SEC is be the second straight year that they don't have a national championship. Absolutely true, okay? Texas isn't what we thought they were. Georgia was down this year. Alabama didn't even make the playoff. All those are true. So if you're using those as ammunition, I'm not going to argue that because those statements themselves are true. I just think those statements don't lead to the ultimate summation of the SEC being worse. I think the truth of the matter is that the country is just getting better, okay? Because let me show you this graphic. So you have 7 teams here. All of these teams finished in the top 20, not the top 25, but in the top 20 of the college football final playoff rankings. The most in America. And yet the SEC is getting worse. 75% of the 16 teams in the SEC have at least 7 wins in 2024. Inversely, 55% of the 18 teams in the Big Ten had at least 7 wins this year. So I'm telling you, I think the Big Ten is a phenomenal conference. I think the ACC has gotten better, and I think it's because people who are smarter than me have thought about this and said, listen, how do we compete from a recruiting standpoint, traditionally and NIL and transfer portal? How do we bring in more collective money? How do we make ourselves more marketable to these 17, 18, and 19-year-olds that are now coming into college, and to these 19, 20, and 21-year-old possible transfers. And I think that's what you're doing. So the SEC being as dominant as it has been over the past 20 years or so is leading to other conferences understanding that they have to step their game up. And that's a good thing for college football. So when I look at this and you tell me, and I ask myself about Michigan. Well, Michigan won the national championship last year. Remember, they won the national championship and didn't even make it to the playoff this year. They didn't even have 9 wins this year. And that's not me disparaging Michigan, because I think Sharon Moore is doing a phenomenal job taking over after Jim Harbaugh. What I'm saying is, when you say a team has taken a step back, Alabama was a team who was still on the cusp of making the college football playoff. Georgia was still a team in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff and who won the SEC. Texas was still a team that got to the semifinals and gave Ohio State all that they could handle, even though Ohio State did what they do. So the point is, don't say the SEC has gotten worse. Simply understand that other teams and other conferences have gotten better. To me, that is the more true narrative. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final segment of the show. History is being made. I talked about this last week, but in a different text this week. Back with the final segment of Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back to Move the Chains. It's the final segment of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. I think sometimes we make the mistake of waiting for a coach to get to a national championship or win a national championship and determine that he's a good coach. Marcus Freeman has been that guy since he's been the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, and probably before that when he started coaching and he was also a player. The fact that this is the first black head coach to ever coach in a college football playoff championship game is phenomenal and sad at the same time. And I told you, I think Notre Dame actually wins this football game, so it takes Marcus Freeman into a different stratosphere. But this is an opportunity of someone who knows how to coach young men get the due that he deserves. And I think we've waited too long just because this is his first national championship game appearance. All right, don't forget that you can not only watch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, but you can also catch us on YouTube, man. Make sure you go to YouTube. It's at @move_the_change. Make sure you subscribe, like, leave a comment, because we're here for it. Hey, it's been another banger. Enjoy the games this weekend and enjoy the championship game on Monday, MLK Day. Happy MLK Day to everybody. For the best production crew in the business, for the best YouTube crew in the business, I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and until next time out here on Move the Chains, God bless.